Welcome to the STP 500 edition of the Wedge Adjustment NASCAR DFS show. I'm your host, Josh Neal. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsSwish. I'm joined by PJ Frappier. You can follow him on Twitter at PJFrapDFS. And the STP 500 is broken down into three segments. The first segment is 130 laps, the second is 130, and the last one is 240, almost half the race. PJ's got some stats here to tell you, and I think you guys should take some notes on this.
Sure, yeah. Couple stats just on the past races through Martinsville. Last year, 7 of the top 10 DFS scores were actually top 10 in the race. So obviously targeting an actual top 10 day is going to be pretty important. The thing about that was that 9 of the top 10 last year were 8K plus. So that being said, obviously we cannot fit all those drivers into your lineup. So we're going to have to find some punts. Good thing is 3 punts last year came through with top 20 DFS scores. So that was good enough to get into the optimal lineup. Well, the winning lineup, not the optimal lineup, but the winning lineup. Leading laps is a must at this race. Fast laps is pretty predictable, more predictable than finishing position just because of the yellows at the end and different stuff can happen. Of the top 10 last year, 5 of the top 10 had a place differential of at least plus 10. So we have to find some guys, mid-pack to late-pack that we can actually get up into the top 10 and have themselves a day. We got 2 to 3 dominators typically here. Could be a little different this year with the segments. Well, it's tough because it's the first time here with segments, so we'll have to see how it plays out. But as far as I'm concerned, that's what I'm targeting. I'm targeting 2 dominators for the race, and yeah, those are a couple stats that we should be focusing on.
Great job on that. So this week we're going to do things a little bit different to trim down the time. We got a cool intro we want to put in on this video, so we're not going to waste your guys' time. We're going to keep it like we normally do. We'll do the 31 through 38 this week, and we'll keep doing what we normally do. So this week I'm going to start out, and I'm going to start out in position number 33 with Chris Buescher. Interesting thing about him is he's 5,200, and if you want to fit in some of those high-price guys like Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Jimmy Johnson, those guys, you're probably going to need some guy that's relatively cheap. And I was watching practice. He seemed to really like his car this week. That's not saying much because they've really struggled. So starting 33rd, 5,200, if he can, avoid some, damage to his car, keep his brakes on, I think he'd come in, around 23rd, 24th. He's not judging by the driver averages. Let's see here. Chris Buescher. Yeah, so he's got a 42.7 driver rating since 2015. I wouldn't put too much stock into that just because at his price, you really don't need much from him. And I really don't think he's going to slide back, any further than what he is. So I really like him as a low-price guy this week. Judging, the 47 team, AJ Allmendinger, their car, pretty good at this track normally, so I'm sure they'll talk to Allmendinger's team. They'll get things situated, and I expect him to come in the top 25, maybe sneak in a top 20.
Sure.
Who's your guy?
Yeah, so in this spot, I'm looking at Cole Witt, who's starting 31st. He, like Chris Buescher, is cheap. He's 5,100 this week, and like I just stated, 3 punts last year made it inside the top 20 DFS scores. So we're certainly going to need the value. And surprisingly, Cole Witt actually showed some decent speed in practice. And coming from, most of these guys typically come from, well, maybe not typically, but a lot of them come from the short track background if they're not coming from dirt or IndyCar or anything like that. So This is kind of home for these guys. There's not really the huge speed discrepancies with the more expensive teams or the more elite teams than the underfunded teams. So anybody can kind of keep up here, and there's a lot of stuff that does go on. A lot of yellows, a yellow can create a yellow. So there could be a lot of wave arounds, and I just really like Cole Witt at the price because, again, he doesn't have to do much.
Exactly. So let's move on to the next range, 30 through 21. And right there in 30th is AJ Allmendinger. Um, he's really expensive this week, judging by his recent performances this year and his speed in the car. I think he's 8,300. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's 84.
84. Somewhere right
No,
there.
83. You were right. You were right.
83?
That's my fault.
You're good. So he is one of my favorite drivers, and I've not been able to use him much this year. But when it comes to restrictor plays, when it comes to Martinsville, and when it comes to road courses, this guy's up the top of my list. His road course background really helps him breaking in the corners, really accelerating off. If you talk to a lot of people in the garage, they're going to tell you he's one of the best here at this track. He really doesn't like his car that much this week. They said they got to improve on the long run, which kind of worries me because last year he was showing significant speed in practice. But at the same time, he starts 30th. The one thing about him is I think where he's 8,300 this week, some people may gravitate away from him because they just can't trust his recency, how good he's been this year. So I think if you're thinking, should I really spend 8,300 for a guy that's really good here, I think a lot of people are going to go away from him. So you might get him at deflated ownership just because it's price. And for me, I'm going to go overweight on him anytime that happens. So he starts 30th. Where do I see him finishing? I think it's an easy top 15 day for him, if not top 12. I think just the way he's able to run during the race. We talk a lot about practice time, but it's a whole other thing when you get in the race and you're so clogged up and making moves. He's one of the best at it. So let's not overreact to the practice speeds that much from him. I think he's going to be just fine. If he can stay out of trouble, which he tends to anger some people the way he drives. I think him and McDowell was going back and forth the other week or last week. So
Yeah.
I say fire him up, if not go overweight on him, because I do think, you'd think he'd be high on this week, but at his price, I think people may gravitate to Junior or someone like that around that price. So I'm all for him, and I think you like him as well. So that's my thoughts on him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one more thing on Allmendinger. Like, his price this week is just so weird because general public they're going to see Allmendinger, and if they don't know his track history here, they're going to be like, wait, what? Like,
they're going to look at his recent races.
Junior is 300 more.
Yeah.
Boyer at 300 less.
Yeah.
Coming off of a good run. So I'm really, really curious to see where that lands. I mean, it's almost a $1,500 price bump from last week. So
yeah. And one more thing. This is where, us NASCAR fans, separate from DFS, this is where us NASCAR fans, our history, what we've watched the races. This is where, you got to tune into things like this. And I think that's where we will have an advantage this week, just depending on other people's perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So on we go to Danica Patrick, who is starting in 29th. And we haven't had really a whole lot to say about her prior to this, but this is one of her best tracks.
And she just got engaged.
28. That's 29. You're right. That's my fault. But again, with her, it's from her IndyCar background, they're used to, kind of floating the corners and not necessarily driving them as hard. Like Dinger has the road course background where he's very aggressive, where Danica just kind of finds the groove and can float the corners, almost like it's kind of how Gordon attacked this place and how he was so good at it. It's very similar. And I mean, come on, she just got engaged tonight, so got to be some good mojo there.
Yeah, good vibes in the air.
Absolutely.
Let's move on. Starting 25th, Matt Kenseth. I mean, this guy just hasn't. It's like every year at the start of the season, this guy just doesn't have luck. Qualifying rained out. They should have used the lots. We'll talk about that some other time. Starting 25th, this guy loves this track, and I'm going to pull up driver ratings. And excluding Jeff Gordon, now among active drivers, he is third, right behind Keselowski and Busch. So his relative average finish is 15, but, you can't really count that in. He just has had bad luck. He's all the time made of bad luck. Starting 25th, he's right around 8,600, somewhere like that. For me, this is just a must play. If you're playing cash, which I'm not this week, I'm playing some head-to-heads. But for me, you lock him into everything. I think he needs to be a core driver. He will be high-owned, which is I think you're going to have him. He's going to be in a winning lineup. For me, like I said, don't put too much into practice speeds because I don't think he was close to the top. He's just a good, savvy driver. He knows his way around. He's like 45, He's been here, done that so many times, and he's not afraid to use his bumper, He obviously put Logano on the wall and cost Logano a amount championship. So,
yeah.
For me, Matt Kenseth, he should finish in the top 10, barring a crazy accident, which he's been the guy to get crazy accidents. So I think coming back to the East Coast, this guy, he's going to start something, he's going to start out good. They're just going to try to finish a race. So for me, fire him up, walk him in, make him into your core drivers, and just move on. What else can I say?
Absolutely. I completely agree. He's definitely going to be a core play for me. So on we go to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Hopefully he is not Ricky Stenhouse this week because I'm going to have quite a bit of them in the 10 lap, the 15 lap, the 20 lap, the 30 lap. He was top 5 in all of them. It's very risky to play him, but if you're going to show that long run speed and be that consistent, and he's cheap. He's 6,300.
And he just got engaged too. So.
He just got engaged. So, why not a couple top 15 finishes and we'll call it a day on them. But no, and in all seriousness, he looked great. His car was definitely one of the best, and the speed was there to prove it.
Yeah, normally you'd want this guy at Bristol instead of Martinsville, but like you said, the numbers don't lie. They found something, the new aero package he loves.
Right, and look what he did at Phoenix too, because Phoenix is pretty similar. Obviously, no, it's not the paperclip, but the corners, they're banked. And I know he stayed out and he got a little fortunate, but he was running in the top 10 for most of the day there. So
yeah.
I think they may have found something on their flat track stuff, and if he stays out of trouble, I think he could be in for a really great day.
That's a good point. Let's move on. We're going to move to 20th to Austin Dillon. Now, obviously, we skipped Dale Jr., Ty Dillon, and Paul Menard. Those guys, they're good plays. We're not going to talk about them. You can play them, but, we're not too heavy on them, so we're not going to waste too much time on them. 20th, Austin Dillon. It's risky, to say the least. It's about like Ricky Stenhouse. The recent results, if you look, they're just not having any speed. But they found something this week. Ryan Newman's got speed. Paul Menard's got a little bit of speed. But Austin Dillon really likes his car. I think there was not in practice, so they got some short run speed. How did he do on the long run, judging by the chart?
Yeah, the long runs, he was mid-pack. He was about 14th to 17th in all those, the 10 lap, 15, and 20 lap.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not going to, overvalue those practice speeds this week. I think, he's learned his lesson. He used to be one of them guys that's really aggressive, but I think they finally calmed him down. In his interviews, he seems more calmed down. I think he finally understands what it's like to, how to finish races, be successful. Not judged by his recent results, which I think that's why he's an elite GPP play, is because not enough people are going to be on him. Like you said, I think he's 7,000, so his price has went down quite a bit, and Eric Almirola is a little bit more expensive. We'll get to him here in a second. But I think, Austin Dillon, recency bias, he's not doing well. But at 7,000 for a guy that's last year, he proved he's a top 10 driver. For me, I like him this week. He fits perfectly in most of my lineups. Not going to go overweight on him just because he can have his moments where he will lose it, just like in that truck race. Or was it – no, it was Xfinity. Or no?
Yeah,
it's
yeah, Xfinity.
Yeah. So – for me, he's an elite GPP play. I really like him. And it's just 20 through 16 range. We keep talking week after week after week. And there's a couple guys in here. If you can nail one or two of these guys in your lineups, like you were saying, you're going to do two dominators on that same strategy. And I think this range right here is the rich place you want to nail in. And I'm all for Austin Dillon this week. You're going to move on to Eric Almirola. What is your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I like Eric Almirola a bunch. He was top 10 in 10 lap, 15 lap, and 20 lap. He's cheap, just like Austin Dillon, and just probably on name recognition, more ownership's going to go to Austin Dillon than Eric Almirola. I know we've been on him. And we've been on him and been on him and been on him. But I think here it is where, and he drives the STP car.
Yeah.
It's the STP 500. So I know that's a bit of a narrative thing, and I know there's no real narratives in racing, but I really do like Almirola.
Yeah, to go back on the name of the race, I think I was all over Jimmy Johnson at the Cobalt. That didn't go too well, but we're going to hope that changes. And, Eric Almirola, just to add to him, you don't really – like you said, you really don't have to have much speed here, which they've been lacking. He looks so smooth in the car. He was pulling up on drivers in practice. I think he pulled up – I want to say Kim Hart, but it might have been someone different. But he was making it look so easy. He's happy. And for me, he can race this track. I think 2012 he finished fourth or somewhere around there. He's proven he is really good at this track. In the past couple races, he's had some bad luck, I think, but he's put together pretty solid finishes, and this week he's really happy. So I'm with you on him. I think he's due for a top 10.
Absolutely, and just to build on it even more. Again, he had a great solid run at Phoenix, and again, similar place. It's a similar story to Stenhouse, and you just see those two correlate really well. And just like you said, he looked so smooth. The car was so balanced. He could turn under anybody he wanted to. So I really, really like him as a GPP play, and I don't think many people will go there with him starting 18th. So
and I was making some lineups earlier. I've got Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola in one of my lineups, and I really, really like that lineup. So there's just a couple of that's my lineup strategy for one of my GPP lineups. Moving on to Jimmy Johnson. Every week I love this guy. I don't know what it is, but he seems to always, he's just a tease so far this year. For me, I'm not going to be overweight on him. I think he's going to have a little bit higher ownership just because he's won here 9 times. But I'm not going to overreact to that. I know I said experience does matter here, but in this case, they were struggling a little bit in practice. They were starting to pick it up there at the end. But at 17th and his price, that's my problem with it. If he was 8,000, I would be all for it.
Right.
He's probably going to finish in the top 10, but at his price, you need just a little bit more from him. So if you can see him, leading a lot of the laps, fire him up. But for me, I'm going to be underweight on him, and that's scary because I've been overweight on him in the past couple weeks. And this is his best track, I believe. It's one, if not one of his best. I'm not too high on him this week. But you really, if you're playing a handful of lineups, I think he warrants one just barring, his experience and his domination here. So if they can get it tuned up overnight, he could shock a lot of us. So can you add something to him? Because I'm mixed up, with him. You might be a little bit higher on him than me, but
it is hard because of the price. And it's tough too with JJ because like he's been so good for so long that he has such good track history like pretty much anywhere. I know this is like to another level with the 9 wins and Hendrick here as a whole has 24 wins and he just I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard to discount him and Chad Knaus at this place.
It is.
They know what the track is going to do at lap 100. They know what it's going to do at 200. They know what it's going to do at 300, and so on and so forth. They know exactly how this track is going to change. The only thing that's different this year is just a different package. We have a different tire that's being introduced this week, which was supposed to be – well, it is softer, but it was supposed to wear more. And while I was watching Happy Hour – it was actually not wearing more. It was wearing less. It was just kind of sticking into the concrete, and there was no rubber pellets really at the top of the racetrack. So that kind of shows you that the tires aren't really getting ripped up. So that being said, I don't know if strategy is going to play a whole bunch of difference this week where they can really excel because they're so good at that. So for me, I'm with you. I definitely won't have 0, but I won't have as much as the field. Just that price. I know it's JJ, but the price this week is just with all the value that opened up because of qualifying getting rained out. It's so hard though.
Yeah, I think his price is really the main problem with it. You know, if it wasn't, you know, we'd say fire him up.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Who's next on the list?
So, yeah, here we go to Denny Hamlin. Home track. He loves it here. It's his best track. He was very upset that qualifying got rained out. And, again, I don't understand that because they do have lights, and I don't quite understand NASCAR's decision. It certainly makes for an interesting week for us. So I'm not really complaining. It's either going to be – some are looking at it as the hardest week. Some are looking at it as the best week. I think it's the best week.
Yeah, me too.
Personally. Because if you're on your stuff and you really pay attention, I think you can really get ahead of the field here this week. And Denny is definitely one of them. I know he carries a big name here, so I'll be interested to see his ownership. But, I mean, where he's starting, you can certainly see him getting up there and leading a portion of this race from 12th. He's another guy, you know, barring something going wrong, it's really hard to see him not even coming in the top 5, to be honest with you.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Dominated here last year. Dominated the race. Kyle Busch mainly. But, again, they're so good here, and he is so good here, and it's home for him. So I think he's definitely in line for a good run. And we'll move on from Denny to a guy that is tough to like most weeks, and I'm usually right on the edge. But again, so it's Ryan Newman, who is starting just directly in front of him in 11th. His practice speeds, and I know I get it, like practice speeds are not everything here, but again, he is a guy that came from the mold of short tracks. Like, he's a short track guy. Like, this for him is very much home.
He's been around here too.
Good at these places. He's very good at running in a tight pack. He's very comfortable. Like, so for me, you combine that speed at practice, how well they have been running, and he's cheap. He's only 7,400. So again, for me, I really can see a top 5 day for him, and that would be a great run at the price.
Yeah, and I'd really, you know, his ownership, I think it's going to be less than 10%, to be honest with you.
That's the other thing.
So, I mean, if he does hit, you know, we could be talking to you next week, and you're going to be in Miami on vacation. So,
yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah, we can only hope after last week. Moving on to the guy that is the talk of all the garage, Kyle Busch, leader in all the averages. I think, you know, it's funny. I think Fox said Joey Logano was the leader in 30-lap averages, but we have some stats. You know, we're all messed up on this at the moment. Kyle Busch is the car to beat. I think no one's going to argue with that.
Yeah, so not to cut you off, but yeah, Logano, they have him at the top 30th because Kyle only ran 28 laps consecutive in practice. That's the only reason.
That's a very good point. So, I mean, if Kyle would have ran 2 more laps, he'd obviously be top. So, for me, I'm 100% on him this week. He is part of my core that I'm really going to hammer down. So I'm really going to have a bad day, a really good day, because I'm keeping the same core in most of my GPP lineups. But this guy is just so good here. And since February 2015, Kyle Busch has an average finish of 3.67. He has 355 laps led, and his average rating is 124.5. That's higher than Jimmy Johnson. That's higher than Jeff Gordon did. That's higher than Keselowski. He is just so good here. And when he first came into the sport, he absolutely hated it here. I remember he was coming in 30th. He just couldn't figure it out. But he has he's went to school and he's figured this place out, and he's dominant here. So if you don't have him, I really don't know what you're doing with your lineups. You're just giving us free money. He's going to be owned. You can fade him, and if you're making a lot of lineups. Obviously, if you're making over 10, there's obviously going to be one that warrants no Kyle Busch. But for me, he's just so consistent here. And I think he did miss one race here just because he had that broken leg. So that's with 355 laps. So just imagine if he'd have raced in that. These numbers would be even more crazy. So for me, fire him up, lock him in. Don't worry about it. I may even pick him to win the race which shouldn't be no surprise, but we'll get to that later. Like I said, 100% on him. I'm that confident.
Yeah, absolutely. I have nothing more to add there. So we'll move right along to a guy that has actually led 2 more laps than Kyle Busch has, and Joey Logano. Granted, that's 1 more race, so who knows what it'll actually be. But it's basically as far as practice times go, Kyle Busch is Joey Logano. So this could get really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I honestly forgot about their feud. So
yeah, and here is the place where you're gonna
payback,
kind of tap. They're gonna be on each other's bumpers pretty much all day, or have a chance at being on each other's bumpers all day. Because to me, it's kind of those two are in a class of their own at the moment. And I can definitely see Joey leading a big chunk of the beginning of this race while Kyle kind of works his way up there. Restarts are going to be insanely important here. You have to be on the bottom. It's to the point where it's so extreme that guys will be braking on pit road just trying to get – they're counting cars just to make sure that they are on the inside lane because it is that important.
Yeah.
That being said, Joey Logano starts 5th. He's on the inside. He has a great chance to move up quickly.
Exactly. And
Kyle does not have that opportunity. So the first chunk of this race, I could certainly see Joey running away with it.
Yeah, and Kyle does start on the outside, but it's going to be so, I think the first couple laps, the outside with the tire, with that new tire, they could hold on, and I see him, he's one of them guys that will pack it down in there. He's not afraid to cut in front of you. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. He may slip up just because he's got Ryan Newman, and Ryan Newman's not going to cut you any slack. So, I think Kyle Busch should have no problem getting up there. And like you said, Joey Logano is starting on the inside. I was telling you earlier, I think he's going to be P3 in like 4 or 5 laps. Granted, the outside does wear off a little bit, but he's the guy that I think is going to chase down Kyle Larson. We'll get to Larson here in a second. But, yeah, I think Logano, for me, he's the guy that's going to lead the majority of the first segment until Kyle Busch comes up there, with the lap traffic and stuff. So
yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll move on. I'm just going to touch quickly on 6th starting spot and Jamie McMurray just because I have to. I know we're going backwards here, but it's just going to be real quick because he again had elite speed and Ganassi this year, and I mean both of them, McMurray and Larson have been really, really, really fast this year. So if you want to go a little bit off the board, McMurray could be a play that's a little off the board, but you could see him maybe leading a couple laps.
Yeah, and he is really good at this track too. So
yeah,
he got a 91.6 driver rating since 2015. So
yeah, no, he's really good here. I mean, 3 of those 4 races are top 10s. We'll see. Like I said, I mean, but again, if you're going to take a shot on him, $8,100, if he does get out front and dominates any portion of this race, that's a very cheap dominator. So you can see that. I'm not saying going crazy because, yeah, starting 6th, there's not really a whole lot of upside. A lot of things have to go your way. Perfect for him to be in a winning lineup. But great speed this week.
Yeah. I'm going to touch briefly on Keselowski starting 4th. For me, Logano starts 5th on the inside line. And if you're on Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano's going to pass him. And Joey Logano has a better car. So for me, it makes no sense to play Keselowski. But there's going to be people on him. And Keselowski has screwed me over in the past. So I'm not saying don't play him. But I'm just saying Joey Logano is going to get ahead of him, and I do think Joey Logano has a better car than him. So, just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on. It's your turn to break this one down. So
yeah, I mean, here we go. The pole sitter. This is this is kind of the tough question of the week. With qualifying rained out, it puts Larson on the pole. I think a lot of people are going to go to him just because he's been so good to start the year. But, Jeff Gordon made a comment at the end of happy hour that kind of is sticking with me. And so he was right in front of Kyle Busch. And, Jeff kind of made the comment of, look how smooth Kyle Busch is running this car and look how smooth he is. And he's not really burning up the right rear. And you got Larson who is just mashing the gas coming out of the corner. And he says,
yeah.
Will probably, and that's the thing here, is the right rear tire. And if you're coming off these corners too wide and you don't have the car just pointed straight off the corner like the elite guys do and how they drive it here, you're going to fall off a lot quicker than those guys. I know he's different this year than he has been, but he is still like ultra aggressive. So you can certainly see him falling off on any kind of green flag run. And I just think Logano he has such elite speed this week, and he's so good here that I don't really see him leading any big chunk of this race because of Logano. So for me, again, the upside is not there because I just can't see him leading 100 laps of this race. I just can't.
Can't say anything else. I'm going to say my thoughts here in a second. Let's just touch base on Elliott Truex real fast. These guys certainly can lead some laps here early if things go right, especially Truex, if he's able to hop out in front of Larson. Truex he led some laps here last year, so he's going to be an elite GPP play, but I'm not going to be on him. Chase Elliott, he did win the truck race, but for me, I got something against young guys here. Like I said, I'm all experienced this week except for one guy. Just no interest for me. I think you're the same way.
Yeah, pretty much the same way. I mean, according to him, I don't know if it's garage talk or what, but with Chase, he said, he kind of, quote unquote, figured out how to handle turn 4 and, well, okay, well, now you got to handle turn 2 and the whole rest of the track. So it's really, really hard to play young guys here. It's one of those things where tire wear is so important. And if you're not going to drive the correct line, you're just going to burn your stuff up. And
that goes back to the right rear, like you said.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these guys run that way too. So
it's so important. I mean, because like I said, if you're coming up sweeping off these corners and, you're putting a lot of pressure on that right rear, and as soon as that thing starts to grow, you're done. And it's really, really hard to stay consistent with a loose car off these corners. And if you're not protecting your car and being smart with it, it's just not going to work. And it's really hard for the young guys. So, and they got to deal with all this traffic. And, it's just that's a whole nother element. And it's just, I know they're professional race car drivers. I know they're in NASCAR. I get that. But this is a different animal at Martinsville. It really is. It's not a joke why JJ's won here 9 times. So,
yep. That does it for the position breakdowns. We're going to do something new this week as well. We're going to start out with our fade of the week. I'm going to let PJ go first. I'm going to sit here and think of my thoughts real fast because he stole my thunder. But I'll let him go first with his, and then I'll follow up with mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's going to be Kevin Harvick this week, which we haven't even really touched on at all. Just, again, the speed, he didn't seem to have, that good balance. And with him, too, this is maybe a little bit of a narrative play, but, again, he is a bit of a hothead. And he's had his fair share of run-ins, especially here. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to happen, but just starting where he's starting, I don't really see him moving up a whole lot. They haven't had the speed, and no Rodney Childers. Like,
that's the big.
I don't think you can have a quality race without your crew chief here. Pit road is so important, making 2 tires, 4 tires, just calling out and spotting on pit road, which a lot of the time when they're leaving the box is the crew chief, it's not the spotter. Just that on this pit road is massive.
Yeah. And to add to the pit road point, I think Fox said this is the second smallest pit road. So there could be some problems on pit road where people get some damage, and that could lead into all sorts of other things. But
right.
My fate of the week is Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
This guy's going to be so heavily owned. 50% I'm predicting if, they're going to
hope.
Yeah, me too. I currently have 0%. I'm this confident.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something real fast. I bought a baseball book about the author was Jonathan Bales. I'm reading, it's more like a GPP book of how to win in fantasy baseball. And everything he's pointing to, it's like, you got to pick, a guy that's the crowd's going for and all this. Everybody's on Kyle Larson, the non-educated DFS players. They're going to see he starts first. He won last week. He's came in second or first, 4 straight weeks. They're just going to have to – and they're going to think he's going to dominate some laps led. So, for me, it makes so much sense. And it goes back to your point about what Jeff Gordon was saying. He's so aggressive. That's going to bite him in the butt. And really, that could cause him to, flatten a tire, hit the wall. And if he goes from first to 35th, your lineups are done. So if you're 50% on him, I'm going to go 0%. I'm going to take your money. I'm going to head to Miami with you, and we're going to have a great day.
There you go. I like it.
Let's go to the the driver that you think will lead the most, the driver that you think will score the most DK points.
Score the most DK points. I mean, flip a coin, but I'll plant my flag on Logano.
I can see it.
Because they're going to lead so many laps. There's going to be – I really, really, really do think that, this race is going to be 2 dominators, maybe a third, but 2 of those 3 are going to lead 2/3 of the laps. And you have to nail those. And for me, Logano is going to be one of them.
Yeah, and I'll just go touch base on the other guy, Kyle Busch. For me, I'm going to, use your guy. Logano, I think Logano's going to dominate the first, maybe half the race. I think Kyle Busch is going to dominate the rest. I'm banking on 2 dominators. And those 2, are mainly in my GPP lineups. That's how I'm going about this week, just to give you guys some insight. I'm filling out my roster. I'm basically breaking it down into a 4-driver lineup, discarding those guys. So I think Kyle Busch is going to lead the most laps. I think he's going to get up there. Let's see, first segment's 130. I think he's going to get the lead somewhere in the second segment. I don't know where. that third segment, though, was 240 laps.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting. And, cautions. I expect all the cautions that we've missed these past couple weeks are all going to come crashing down tomorrow. And odds are 2 or 3 or your 6 drivers are going to have problems. The GPP winners are going to be the ones who pick a perfect lineup without all those problems. So I'll go Kyle Busch, you go Logano. That brings us to our race winner.
Yep.
And you have?
Oh, man. I'm going to go Logano. To me, honestly, because this would get real ugly for us and anybody that's on those two, because I'm telling you right now, if they're 1 and 2
On
going into turn 3 on the last lap, oh boy, we could be in trouble if there are a lot of people on the lead lap. We could be in trouble. But I'm just going to go Logano. I mean, they've had pole after pole after pole here. They were another team that was kind of bummed out, that qualifying was canceled. They just haven't gotten that win yet.
Yeah.
Coming off of last year's disappointment in the fall with Kenseth and all that, they come back, they get the win.
I'm going Kyle Busch. Basically the same reasons you are. But like you said, if it's them two at the last lap, cover your eyes. We could be in for a 10-round bout on pit road again. For my sake, my money's sake on DK, for everyone's sake that's listening to the show, we're going to hope and pray overnight that don't happen. I'd like to see them 1-2 on the last lap, just beating and banging. But, if Kyle Busch does dump Logano, Logano got dumped by Matt Kenseth. Logano, it could happen. He's just not had that much luck here. So it could bring back memories for him. But I'm going to go Kyle Busch. Like I said, I think he dominates the last third of the race, if not last half of the race, barring any damage to his car or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the STP 500, the Wedge Adjustment NASCAR DFS show. If you guys like this video and you want us to make more, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out. We're a growing channel. We really feel like we're on the go. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and good luck this week.
Good luck this week. Thanks, guys.